When you're planning a move to Southeast Tennessee, you could do everything right when picking a neighborhood. You'll check the price, check the commute, even check the schools, and still, you might end up 6 months later in your living room realizing that that neighborhood never actually felt like home. So today, I'm going to show you 3 neighborhoods where, if you're looking for the most peaceful place to rest your head, that feeling is a lot less likely to happen. And look, boring gets a bad reputation. But if you're the kind of person who wants to pull into your driveway at the end of the day and just exhale, then boring is exactly what you're after. And really, boring is exactly why we moved out here. I'm Chris Roberts, your Southeast Tennessee relocation realtor, and I help people from all over the country make this move. And whether you're relocating from out of state or you're a local who's been thinking about making a change, stick around because one of these 3 neighborhoods might be exactly what you've been looking for. There's a doggy daycare that's not far from Mountain Brook called Uptown Hound. And that's where my wife Megan and I take our dog Hazel. And one of the things that I noticed early on driving that route is that the closer that you get to Mountain Brook, the quieter everything seems to get. Mountain Brook sits on the northwest side of Cleveland, and it is established in the truest sense of the word. We're not talking about a neighborhood that's been around for just 5 years and is still finding itself. The trees here have had decades to grow in. The lots are an acre or more on most of the streets, and the homes have that settled in, rooted quality. Different styles, different eras, all of them very well kept. What makes Mountain Brook peaceful isn't just the lot sizes, though those do help. It's the absence of through traffic. Nobody is cutting across Mountain Brook to get somewhere else. The people on those streets, they live there. That's it. And Mountain Brook tends to attract a specific kind of person. They're not just looking for a nice neighborhood, they genuinely relish in the quietude. And that's a word that I keep coming back to. Not just quiet as a feature, but quiet as something that they're actively wanting more of in their life. And that mature tree cover here delivers in a way that new neighborhoods simply cannot replicate. You can't just buy a 40-year-old oak tree. You're only going to find those in neighborhoods that already have them. And Mountain Brook has got them in spades. Walking those streets, the canopy starts to close in above you in a way that changes the entire feel of the place. Even on a bright day, it's shaded and calm. When the world outside is moving fast, Mountain Brook isn't. Price-wise, Mountain Brook typically is going to run in the $700,000 to $900,000 range, depending on the home and the lot. Homes here don't come available super often, with only 10 having been sold in the last 18 months, and when they do, people are usually paying attention. Now, there's a reason that mature tree cover will appear on almost every single one of these what makes a neighborhood feel peaceful. It's not just aesthetic. It's acoustic, it's thermal. It changes the light, the sound, the temperature out on your front porch. Think about it. An acre of 40-year-old trees between you and the rest of the world is something that you feel before you can even articulate why. So as we drive through this lush, forested neighborhood, we're going to head to the northeast side of town over to Covenant Hills. Covenant Hills is out off Benton Pike, and the approach alone tells you something. You pass the Chautauqua Valley Golf Course on your way in, and then you turn into Covenant Drive, and the road starts to narrow, the trees that close in on both sides, and you feel genuinely tucked away. Kind of like someone just flipped a light switch and turned the whole world off. And one thing that's worth knowing about Covenant Hills before you go looking it up is it's a much smaller neighborhood than the others on this list. And that's not a drawback. For the right person, that's going to be actually part of the appeal. There are fewer streets, fewer homes, and as a result, fewer people moving through. The whole neighborhood has an intimacy to it that a large subdivision just doesn't have. The primary street splits into 2 that are cul-de-sacs with mature trees and lots that are going to run right around an acre. Homes here were built mostly in the 2007 through 2022 range, so you're getting the benefit of newer construction inside of an established, natural setting. And that combination is harder to find than most people realize. Usually you're going to get one or the other. And you're also just about 15 minutes from downtown Cleveland, so you're close enough not to be isolated, but you're far enough away so that it's not going to act as a pass-through for anybody. And in a smaller neighborhood like this, that matters even more. When you know roughly how many households are on your street and none of them are going anywhere that brings traffic through yours, the quiet becomes almost predictable in the best possible way. Now, pricing here is going to run between $500,000 and $700,000 depending on the lot size and the age of the home. And the lower end of that range has some real inventory. These are custom homes on private lots and they totally feel like it. For retirees especially, Covenant Hills, it does check a lot of boxes. You get newer builds, which mean less maintenance. The lots are generous without being overwhelming, and that 15-minute proximity to Cleveland's medical facilities and amenities matters more than people think when they're planning long term. In my opinion, smaller neighborhoods are totally underrated. When you live somewhere with fewer households, you tend to actually know your neighbors. Not just wave from the driveway kind of know them, but actually know them. That sense of community is something people say they want, and then they accidentally optimize away by choosing a neighborhood with 500 homes in it. Now, as we head to our final neighborhood in the south part of the city, you won't be seeing those types of massive subdivisions. This last one might be the one that you least expected to end up on a list like this. Farmingdale Trails is in the south part of Cleveland, off Dalton Pike, and if you spent any time driving around Bradley County, you know that the south part of the city feels different from the rest of it. Up north, you've got the growth, the new construction, the expanding corridors, all of that activity. Down here, it's a lot of farmland with wide open spaces, fantastic views, and a quiet that comes not just from neighborhood design, but the fact that there really just isn't much around here yet. That's a different kind of peaceful, and for the right person, it might be actually the best kind. I just helped a client go under contract on a home in Farmingdale Trails, and the reasons that she chose it tells you everything that you need to know about who this neighborhood is right for. It was the views, it was the quiet, the feeling of being in that south part of Cleveland where things just haven't caught up yet. And maybe most importantly, it put her close to her son, and that proximity to family, the neighborhood that still feels like a retreat, was exactly what she was looking for. Now, I've been up on the ridge at the top of that subdivision on Timbertop Crossing, and I understand why. From up there, you're looking down over the rooftops toward the main road below, and beyond that, the mountains. On a clear day, it's genuinely striking, and on a cloudy day, the way that the light sits on those ridge lines, it has this mood to it that you just can't manufacture. The homes here are newer, mostly 2006 and later, which means again that they're tight, well insulated, and designed for the way that people actually live now. Half-acre lots, super low HOA, like $100 a year, and the price range is going to be from $360,000 to $440,000. The Southeast Walmart on Treasury Drive is just about 5 miles away, which keeps you from feeling stranded. There's also an Aldi, a Food City, and more right in that area, plus one of my favorite Thai restaurants, Han Thai, but I digress. This is going to be the neighborhood for someone who has made a conscious decision to be just a little bit further out from the action, not as a compromise, but as a choice. You know, the most peaceful neighborhoods aren't always the ones with the oldest trees or the biggest lots. Sometimes it's simply about what surrounds them. When there are more cows than people in your area, the quiet, it comes for free and tends to stay that way for longer than people might expect. All right, 3 neighborhoods, 3 different parts of Cleveland, and 3 completely different versions of peaceful. So how do you figure out which one is yours? Here's how I think it through with clients. If mature tree cover is a non-negotiable for you, if the visual and acoustic privacy that comes from a real canopy of established trees is something that you just know you need, Mountain Brook is going to be your answer. You're not going to find that level of maturity in a newer neighborhood. It takes decades to grow, and Mountain Brook already has it. Now, if you want newer construction and lower maintenance, but you still want to feel tucked away, Covenant Hills is worth a serious look. You get the benefit of homes that were built in the last 15 to 20 years inside a setting that feels far more established than the build dates suggest. And the smaller scale of the neighborhood gives it a community feel that larger subdivisions just rarely achieve. And if your priority is getting the most home for your money and you're drawn to the idea of being a little off the beaten path, Farmingdale Trails deserves your attention. The price point is the most approachable on this list. The views are genuinely special, and the south part of Cleveland's slower pace is a feature, not a drawback, especially if you're the kind of person who finds comfort in knowing that farmland, not a strip mall, is going to be your nearest neighbor. And what all 3 of these have in common is this. None of them are cut-through neighborhoods. Nobody is driving through these streets to get to somewhere else. The people on those roads, they live there. And on a random weekday evening, when you're home, when the day is winding down, when you're just living your life, that's the thing that matters the most. And here's one question that I would put on top of that. Which side of Cleveland keeps you closest to the people and places that matter most in your daily life? Because peaceful is great, but peaceful and well located is what makes a neighborhood work long term. If you want to talk through which one of these fits your specific situation, that's exactly what I do every week. The link that's in the description will get you to my calendar, and I would love to have a conversation with you about how you can live your best life in Southeast Tennessee.